Hey guys, Artosis here with the CasterMuse Star League Season 4. This is from the round of 16 in Group B, and it's actually game number 2 of a best of 3 between Miso and Action. If you haven't seen game 1, it's in the same VOD as Action versus Best, because that first one was really quick. Anyways, here we go. In the bottom left of Ringing Bloom, we have Action, and in the top left, we have Miso. So in the first game, we actually saw a tactic that I've almost never seen, where Action decided to kill some of his own drones to free up supply to just roll through Miso before he was ready. And it was cool, man. He went down to like 4 drones or something and just bludgeoned Miso right before he was ready. He actually had enough gas to have enough units, but sometimes you bank that for a little bit, right? And afford that extra drone and afford that extra overlord and get that hatcher out. And Action just jumped upon him. So it was a cool game and a tactic I don't really remember seeing very often. So Action does lead 1-0 right now in this best of 3. This is the winner's match. So the winner goes on to the next round, the round of 8. And yeah, we'll see which one of these guys is able to take it. Let's talk about the map a little bit. The map is Ringing Bloom. And this was on the ladder for... Is it on the ladder still? I think it might be. Actually, I vetoed it, though, so I'm trying to remember. Either way, we do have, this ramped main base, which is an important thing to mention. This is not actually your natural first expansion. It's actually behind it. For Action, it's here. For Miso, we can see it because his Overlord already flew over it. A little ramp going down to the back. You have an expansion here. Very easy to defend. And you see these overmine cocoons. These are just here so that you can put sunken colonies in there to defend. The eggs make the ramp a little bit tighter. So yeah, it's an interesting map for sure. I'm trying to think about how it will change Zerg versus Zerg. The natural, of course, is going to be a little bit easier to hold because you do have the ramp to hold it at. But the ramp is pretty wide. I guess the eggs make it small enough that it is still reasonable to line up your Zerglings here on the high ground and prevent your opponent from breaking in too easily. So, yeah, we'll see, I guess, how they end up playing it out. Overall, we see for Action, he is getting the Zergling speed upgrade. We don't see the layer as of yet. Over here on Miso's side, he's trying to get that expansion up right away. Is getting some of his own Zerglings out. There are, of course, 8lings on the way here for Action. Only 6 going to get there right now, and of course 6 for Miso ready for him. So far, it's looking pretty good for Miso, to be perfectly honest. He's up a drone, and he already has a hatchery making, and he has enough lings to hold the ramp right now. And you can see him starting to make that arc. He's actually bringing a couple drones, which is a very important tactic. The drones can actually shoot over the lings. They have a very slight range to them, and that allows much more damage output from the defender. And even though those are 2 drones not mining, this is fine because he actually owns an additional drone, right? And Action, we see just continually making Zerglings, sending them up the map. He does have that Zergling speed upgrade. He wants to break through here. He is going up to layer, but so is Miso. So I think Action, there is an expiration date on him in this game, I think. He really needs to get something done with all the money he's put towards aggression because he doesn't have that additional hatch. So if the game starts to go long, we have more larva for Miso and also, just another area where he can start mining more gas. The minerals, not as important, but having that second gas, if we get into Mutalisk versus Mutalisk, will be a game changer, a backbreaker against Action. So Action right now, he's getting his Spire, but so is Miso. That is not far behind, right? That's only like 100 health behind. It's going to finish. Basically, he'll have mutas popping out as the mutas of Action get there. So still, Miso definitely with an advantage. Now, Action has come home and set up a line of Zerglings himself, but has a small group off to the side. So his Overlord is going to watch, and if these Zerglings leave the base, these ones will go to counterattack while these defend. So that's the tactic right now that Action is using. He's hoping for Miso to get a little bit aggressive. And if he does, that's a way that Action absolutely can change the game. 4 Zerglings with speed will ravage this drone line in a matter of seconds. He will just dominate his economy. But if Miso kind of sits tight, it could be a little bit hard for Action here, not having that extra base. You can see now the second gas going up. So he's just going to have more over time. He's going to be able to produce more Mutalisks, which is so important. Now, we do have the first Mutalisk being created. Let's look around for overlords. It looks like we do have a Miso overlord here. We have an action overlord here. You can see it's kind of vacating the premises because he knows that Mutalisks are going to be coming out pretty quickly. He'll probably end up losing this one. These two overlords saw each other, so this is another location where action kind of has to run away from. But this area is dangerous to go to with your Mutalisks. I'm not sure if they'll go hunting that far because then your base can be attacked. You're so far out of position. Either way, the Scourge coming out from Miso, 4 of them coming over to hunt. And honestly, when you only have 1 Mutalisk or 2 Mutalisks, it's pretty hard to micro against these. So let's see if he can get the hit. Yeah, 1 Scourge already hitting. Okay, he micros well and picks off that other one. Oh, and he actually connects. Very good job there from Miso. So loses 3 Scourge to kill a Muta. Definitely worth, I would say. Now, these Mutas flying up the map. Only a couple of them, though. We're starting to have Miso add some in as well. I do expect to see more Scourge out of him. Since he does have the extra larva, he can really spend them. He has the extra gas as well. Now, 3 Mutas against 3 and a Scourge. So Miso just slightly ahead in that air battle so far. Action has made his natural expansion, but he's not mining gas yet where Miso is. So he needs to get that going ASAP. He's down 3 drones, unfortunately, as well. Action massing up these Mutas. But look at this. Miso coming down for a very strong move. He has a similar amount of Mutas, but also a bunch of Scourge, which are going to make action really micro. Now, here he goes. Moving shot upon this Mutalisk. Does change targets over here. Okay, finally picks that off. The Scourge going after these Mutas right now. He's chasing them down, putting a lot of damage on. And action's actually microing pretty darn well. Oh, as he turns there, does take another Scourge hit to the face. 2 of his Scourge, though, coming out and damaging Miso's Mutas there. So good defense from action. I actually thought he might lose straight up there, but very strong control. Now, that being said, we just don't have the gas mining here. So even though maybe he came out slightly well there, considering what he had in the battle, we still just have more gas for me, so we have the more production so far. So he is going to come across the map again pretty soon. Now, these Zerglings in position to try to do a flank. The Overlord actually sees them, which is kind of important. Action using his Mutas to push back the Lings of Miso. The Lings of Action coming up on the side as well. Might have a big air and ground battle coming up. Definitely looks like it's a possibility. Both sides just producing Mutalisks heavily now. No upgrades or anything. Kind of a fast and furious game, so I think no one feels like they can really sneak in an attack or armor upgrade. Just got to spend all of that gas on the Mutalisks and Scourge. And when are we going to see this fight? It's going to be coming to a head relatively soon. So action Muta-wise right now. 7 Mutas. We'll keep track of that. Oh, but look over here. We do have the 9 Mutas for Miso. So, I mean, in Muta versus Muta, there is a little bit of micro, but a lot of it comes down to the Scourge that are also in the battle and whether those are going to be able to hit. So, look, here we go. 8 Mutas coming out, and that's going to be going out up against, or 9 Mutas against 10 Mutas, rather, sorry. Plus Scourge everywhere. So Miso definitely has the advantage. In fact, does get some connections with those Scourge. Miso diving here, trying to get the kill. If he can eliminate all these Mutas, the game will be his. Action microing frantically, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And GG is called a fast and furious one. Miso takes game number 2, but let's go right into game number 3. Game number 2. All right, game number 3. Here we go. That was a pretty fast one. And now we get to decide who goes on to the round of 8. Is it going to be this man, Miso, aggressive Zerg player? Having a nice victory there, actually, with a more macro-esque game on Ring Bloom. Or will it be this guy over here, Action, who's actually, I mean, you know, he's known as a macro Zerg and definitely excels in that area, but he has shown, I think, in this tournament and many others that he will mix in cheeses when he thinks that they're appropriate. And, you know, maybe that's why he's so good, right? Is because when you think of a scary macro player, then they cheese you. That's That's a powerful thing, right? Your mindset is one place and not necessarily to stop early game aggression. That's how he got best. And he's been reasonably aggressive here, honestly, against Miso so far. But I think that that's a great skill to have in Zerg vs. Zerg, especially. A lot of people consider the aggressor to have the advantage in this matchup because it's just on a knife's edge the entire time. So if you can, it's a lot easier to deal some damage than to prevent it in StarCraft, just in general. Anyways, we do have the quick gas coming out of action here. Overlords passing in the center so they know exactly where each other are. A little Overlord kiss, mwah, as they go past on their way. Gonna have the hatchery first coming down. And for action, yeah, I guess this is more of... Well, I mean, it's about a 12, like 12 poolish with gas. So actually, when you look at these two builds line up, definitely you gotta think that Miso probably has a little bit of an advantage here, right? His spawning pool is not that much later, but he's getting this hatchery first. And as action gets over here, you know, he's done kind of a safe middle of the road build, but against the quicker hatchery, I think Miso's going to be feeling pretty good about his spot within this game. Of course, Miso doesn't know what's going on quite yet because this is a rotationally symmetric map, so the Overlord gets here and sees the natural, whereas Miso hasn't yet. But when he gets up here and sees how many drones, the timings of everything, he's going to have a good idea, especially when he sees that layer. Now, Gas just started mining for Miso, so he's definitely going to be behind on that. And it feels like it's one of these games that we might end up seeing where there's a lot of spores, if it gets that far. But a lot of the times when you scout your opponent going for a relatively quick layer, you like to go as the expansion Zerg into mass speedlings. But the thing is, this is a little bit higher economy. And in fact, he's adding a second hatchery in his main base. Oh, that's fascinating. I love to see things like this. But that's going to give him less area that he actually has to defend, but a lot of production as well. So I feel like he's going to get Zergling speed, but we'll see about that. I'm not the biggest ZVC expert on exactly what he wants to do. Yeah, there it is. So Zergling speed coming down for action. Of course, Zergling speed as well for Miso, since he did take that natural. You definitely need to have Zergling speed in that type of situation. So both sides are going to be able to macro up pretty heavily here, but we do have more gas mined for action, a quicker layer for action as well. Now, Miso will be able to get his second gas more quickly, but he can't get it right away, right? Like, you have to be a little bit careful here. You're going to have to actually play... well, you can play more aggressively with the Lings, but as far as Mutalisks go, his Spire is going to be a bit later. So there's two ways he can go about this. He can make these spores, or he can try to just go like really heavily into the Zerglings and mess up action that way. We'll see what he ends up going for. So we do have a couple Lings off to the side. Action loves doing moves like these. A lot of Zerg players do. I see Sulky do moves like this a lot in Zerg vs. Zerg as well. Just sending two off to the side, hoping your opponent can't find them, and you can get some damage done. A nice little spread on top of the ramp. A little spread at the bottom of the ramp, too, to try to catch him if he does try to come down. There is that second gas. And the evolution chamber that I was talking about before. So you'll probably need to get at least a couple spores here. And in fact, the placement of this I find a little bit peculiar. Because if you want to mine like minerals down here, you're going to need a spore down here. So what he might do is just take these guys off of, yeah, and send them over to here. Take them off of the minerals and send them to the gas. And yeah, there's the second spore. But that means that there is this kind of inside area that could be a little bit weak. Hold on, though. We actually have a little bit of a Zergling attack. Yeah, that was surprising. He actually turns around right away. I really wasn't expecting a Zergling attack based on what's been happening here. So that's why I was kind of not paying attention to that. But anyways, this area could be a little bit open. But because his Spire isn't that much slower, it seems like he'll be all right. I really like the way Miso's playing, to be honest. The two colonies here. Not overproducing the colonies overall, it feels like. Okay, so here we go. Action coming across with his mutas. Just continuing to produce. Coming into the middle. Ooh, gets the first Scourge. Very well done. Comes in immediately to the drone line. Gonna pick off a few drones here, but as more mutas come out, and as Scourge come out as well, he's gonna have to turn around. I can't believe he just dodged all that. Actually, Micro's back and does end up taking out some of the Scourge. And it looks like Miso will turn around. That was some crazy aggression from Action. He did some good damage there. Now you see the drone count is favoring Action right now, but again, the second geyser is what matters more than anything else here. So Miso coming out onto the map. Does have that Muta advantage right now on the map, but looks like loses an Overlord. Look at this count from Action thus far. 8 Mutas out. Decent health on them. Here we have 3, 4, and a bunch of Scourge. And yeah, normally when you do get that second gas, you will use more Scourge early on, and then you'll backfill in those Mutas. So the Mutas starting to come in, and they're going after these drones, and they will get a couple pickoffs, but Miso gonna punish slightly. Gets a hit off there, some very low health Mutas, but once again, hurting the economy. 12 drones against 14. Action taking another base. He hasn't taken any damage. He hasn't been forced into any spores or anything like that. And he's keeping the economy as close as he can right now. But utilizing that extra gas, we see that Scourge count continue to grow for Miso. Where are Action's mutas? Here they are. Have to keep a close eye on that. 10 mutas right now. Against just 5. Do have a big bank of almost 5 mutas worth of gas, though. So as he builds that mineral count back up, he definitely can start to afford them. You can see already the gas being taken by Action. He realizes that he has been quite behind in this regard. So focusing on getting that gas mining, even if it has to be long distance for a little bit, just adding any gas in here is super powerful. It's just, I mean, ZVZ is so reliant upon that after the early game. So already a whole group of mutas put together by Action. Mutas continuing to be masked up here. On the other side, so many Scourge. Oh my god, he's actually only got 6 mutas against 11, but tons of Scourge. He's got 22 Scourge right now. That is a massive, massive amount. Okay, let's see how this goes. This is going to be a crazy battle. Here we go, the Scourge flying in, and some good micros so far from Action. Loses 1 muta, takes a couple Scourge hit on some others. The Ling's coming in as well. So much damage coming out of Miso. Really going for broke here. The Mutalisk micro is real, and he does have to pull back for now. As these Lings invade the mineral line, Action going to pull back, pick those off with his Mutalisks. Still more damage being dealt with this very small flock of mutas, but can Action catch that on its way home? A couple Scourge coming back, trying to catch him, and actually he does. Gets a good connect right there. Wild game at the moment. Action with the early aggression, then Miso following up with a push of his own, but that Mutalisk lead is held by Action right now. Some more mutas coming up to actually join here. So he knows that Action is likely following his mutas, and we saw he was following them up to a point, but then Action calculates, you know what, time to go elsewhere with this. And a very smart move by the mutas of Miso here. Rejoining up, getting them all together. Let's take a look at the actual count. 8 mutas there and 7 there, and these actually have more damage on them, so he probably does have to turn around. A lot of Scourge actually connecting right now. Looks like 7 mutas going up against, oh, it's hard to click, 4. So Action has lost quite a bit, but the economy has been hurt badly here from Miso. He does not have many drones right now. Action trying to fly out of here, takes some more hits as well. The Lings in the meantime killing off quite a few of these drones, 9 against 15 workers. So if that slows your opponent down from mining some gas because he has to remine minerals to remake the drones, that's one way you can catch up with the mutas. Oh, he takes another hit, loses another muta getting hit as well. Action in kind of a tough spot, but his economy is so much stronger. I think the one big problem here is he just doesn't have any real anti-air, right? If he had a spore at each base, I would say that he's in good shape. But there's actually so many Scourge and mutas still alive for me, so it feels like he could go across and push. Let's see, the Scourge flying around looking for any mutas that they can kill off. I'm actually kind of looking for them as well. What do we have left? Oh, just kind of in the middle of nowhere right now. Look at this. They're waiting over the eggs. They know that probably mutas are being made since he has enough drones. I like the idea. Ooh, good micro right there, and does end up taking out the Scourge. Of course, you could send your own Scourge after the Scourge, but that's a direct trade, whereas if you risk the micro, you can gain a slight advantage there. All right, so who's winning right now? Let's try to figure that out. 18 drones against 15. Miso is caught up reasonably there. Miso does have a 400 gas bigger bank, and he's starting +1 carapace, which we haven't seen any upgrades yet for action. Mutalisk count for action. 4 mutas at the moment. He's making 3 more. 5 here, making 2 more. It's pretty close. It's pretty close, but action does have a big drone lead, whereas the +1 carapace on the way for Miso. So if we actually go kind of neck and neck and that +1 carapace finishes, that can really change things. If you have similar amounts of mutas and you have that +1 armor, the +1 armor actually prevents 3 damage from each Mutalisk attack, because they do have those glaives that bounce, right? They have like basically 3 small attacks come out of a Mutalisk, so it's a gigantic upgrade. So yeah, I like that aspect. And the 22 drones that we have for action, what is he going to utilize those drones for? Like, he can very cleanly make his overlords in mutas, and he doesn't have to make too many Scourge because he has the minerals. I guess that's about it, right? But 22 is like a pretty darn solid economy. Now, it's kind of funny. He's actually picked off this spore so that he could get better saturation on his minerals. It was definitely blocking some patches here. He's kind of roaming around with his mutas, a very healthy flock. And action seems like he might be gearing up for an attack. We see 12 mutas there. We see a lot of Scourge being made. And it looks like he's actually going to go into some spores as well. Now, he leaves one at home, gets a group of mutas here. 11 mutas does constitute a group because you want to group them with another unit for that stacking ability. Come in, get a little bit of damage. You do hear some Scourge hits there. Ling's trying to run into and all this, going after those drones once again. Willing to take some Mutalisk hits. Wow, some heavy micro here from action, trying to get that damage done. Look at this, 14 against 21 drones. So he continues to deal that damage. He's actually killed a lot of drones so far this game. Action does have a pretty significant supply lead. Miso, though, has more Mutalisks, and he's about to have that carapace. So that might change everything. Action with more supply, but is that going to matter with that additional armor upgrade? We'll see in just a moment, because it is about to finish. Action just now starting his flyer carapace. Few Lings trying to run in, but plenty of mutas here waiting, and there we go. He does have that +1 armor. I feel like it's time right now to see what Miso can get done. Throwing down, oh my god, here we go. Action actually coming into fight as well. And that +1 carapace forcing him back. Doesn't have any Scourge left. Really healthy amounts of Mutalisks on both sides. But now Miso is going for the attack, and I tell you, this looks really scary indeed. We have spores popping up just in the nick of time. 4 spores. The spores should be able to account for those extra armor advantages that Miso has. If action flies back over his spores, it's going to be hard to take that fight still, but the Scourge chasing him down. He's actually just right-clicking onto the first spore. Action trying to micro against these Scourge is unable to do it. He loses so many mutas, only 4 left over in that original flock. More are being made. He still has spores, so maybe he's not dead as of yet, but this is a very scary amount of Mutalisks coming out of Miso, who, by the way, the Ling counterattack killing most of his drones, so he actually does have to finish this right now. Jumping on top of these spores once again. Action, can he kill off the rest of these mutas while he kills the economy of his opponent? Oh my god, is Miso still going to knock out all of the mutas here? Some of those Scourge actually connecting. 4 hurt mutas here against the 1 of action. Another spore finishes, and Miso is forced off. Loses his hatchery at the natural. The Ling counterattacks of action. I didn't think that would be what did it for him, but it looks like it might be. He keeps his economy intact. He destroys the economy of Miso here and continues to add spores, so he just can't be killed despite the fact we have better upgrades and we do have more mutas for Miso. He continues to try to fight, but that is not going to be enough, and GG, action advances to the round of 8.